All right. Well, welcome back, Merc Nation, to the Merc Method. I greatly appreciate you being here as always. Today's going to be some deep conversation because it's going to hit home with a lot of the listeners as well as myself. And before we start anything else, I just want you to take a second with me, okay? Not thinking about tomorrow and not thinking about, what didn't work out, not thinking about what you're still trying to figure out, just being right here and present. Because again, today's conversation is going to be a deep one. Not because I read it somewhere and not because it really sounds good, but because I've lived this situation. And if you've ever felt like life wasn't lining up, like things weren't going the way you've planned, like you were doing everything right and nothing was clicking, this episode is for you. Because I want to talk about something that's changed everything for me. I'm not talking about success or money, not status, but learning how to pay attention to the signs that life has been giving me already. And realizing that maybe nothing was actually going wrong in the first place. Maybe I just was focusing on the wrong things. And I wasn't ready yet at the time. Let's be completely honest with ourselves, right? There are moments where you feel like you're doing everything right, but life is doing everything else entirely. It's doing the exact opposite on what you want it to do, right? We're trying to force things to happen when they're not going to happen right now. You're trying, you're showing up, you're pushing it. You're just pushing it too hard, but it still feels like nothing is moving. In those moments, what do most of us do? We force harder. We push harder. We try to control it more, right? We convince ourselves that if we just do more, stay up longer, work harder, stress more, it will finally work out. Well, what if that's not alignment? What if that's resistance? I want you to really sit with this idea because it took me a while to sit with this too. Sometimes life isn't saying no. Sometimes it's saying not yet. Sometimes it's saying this isn't the way. But we don't like that answer because it takes control out of our hands. I'll give you an example from my experience that's happening right this second. I've gone through a lot of different levels in the last 6 years. And to be honest, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I felt like I should have been in a better situation, maybe even a couple of years ago. But looking back now and understanding what I had to go through and learn and the process, it actually worked out in my favor more so than I could ever imagine. Everything is starting to line up right now. But at the time, I wasn't paying attention to the signs. Let me ask you something that's real, okay? Have you ever looked back at something that didn't actually work out for you then and then realized later, much, much later, usually, that actually saved me or that actually worked out in my favor? That job I didn't get, that relationship that ended, the opportunity that disappeared, that plan that fell apart. Has that ever happened to you? It's happening to me. It happened to me. At that time, it hurt, right? I was devastated. There were things that I thought I was capable of doing, or maybe a job that I thought I should have, and it didn't work out. And I really thought that that was the one. I really did. It felt like rejection, of course, but now I actually see it a little bit differently. And that's what I mean when I say the signs are always there. The universe doesn't always scream at you, it whispers. It shows us patterns. It shows you repeated lessons. It will continue to show you doors closing that you keep trying to reopen because we're trying to force things that we're not supposed to be in. And if you're honest, there's usually a part of you that already knows that something isn't right. For me, it was a gut feeling. A couple of situations where I was going to go somewhere to work, immediately I knew it wasn't the right choice. Not the fact that maybe they were a horrible company or whatever, it just wasn't for me. That wasn't my purpose. But we tend to ignore those because we want it to work so badly. And I tried and it didn't work. And I'm glad that what happened because I'm in a way better position right now. But let's talk about something deeper, right? We don't force things because we're weak. We force things because we're scared. Scared to start over again. Scared of being behind. Scared of looking weak. Scared of being wrong. Scared of waiting. So we grab onto things that were never meant to stay, and then we wonder why it feels so heavy. But alignment doesn't feel heavy. It doesn't feel like chasing. It doesn't feel like constant confusion. It just feels right. It feels like the flow and the path you're supposed to be on. And I'm not saying that life's perfect once you find this flow, right? There's a difference between struggling in purpose and struggling outside of it. And that's what was happening with me. I thought I had found my purpose in different spots. And I didn't necessarily end up being in that position, but I took a lot of things from those spots to become part of the purpose. I want to shift the conversation a little bit because this is where it gets a little personal. There was a version of you before life told you who you had to be, before expectations, before the disappointments and failures, before your trauma, before other people's opinions started shaping your identity. There was a version of you that was just. And I want to say that clearly to everybody listening, that version of you didn't disappear. It didn't die. It didn't get replaced. It just got buried under everything you've been carrying. And now life is not asking you to become someone new. It's asking you to come back to the surface, back to your clarity, back to purpose, back to yourself. Again, the last 6 years have been crazy. There's been a lot of places that I thought, you know what, this is it. Or there was something that was sitting there waiting in front of me that I thought could have been the one. And that's just talking about a job, but also just things in general. And they weren't. And now I'm seeing the difference. I'm seeing the why. They're learning experiences, but now I'm in a place where things are just falling together like puzzle pieces. And I was listening to a song the other day that says it feels like paradise. It does. It almost is scary to see how the things that I've fought for and the doors that have closed were just parts of the path. And when we talk about that path or that why, it's much bigger than ourselves. It's not just about us. It never really was because what we have gone through, what we have survived and learned, it doesn't stop with us. Somebody is going to need what we made it through and what didn't break us. Somebody is going to see our journey and realize they can keep going. Somebody is going to find hope because we didn't quit. That's why your path matters even when it doesn't make sense. That's why all those delays mattered and those detours mattered. But you kept moving forward. And I know it was tough. It's been a rough patch right now for me, but like I said, the light is definitely shining. Because one day your story becomes someone else's survival guide. That's what it's getting built for. And when I was talking about paradise before, paradise isn't a place. It's not a destination. It's not a job title or money or approval. Paradise is having that feeling of alignment finally. It's when you stop fighting your path or, like we were talking about, forcing things and stop questioning your worth. It's when you stop chasing what isn't yours, but you start trusting what is. Trust in yourself. That's when life starts feeling different, not easier, but lighter, more clear, and more of the version of you that actually already exists. We just have to dust them off a little bit. There's a moment that happens in this journey, the moment where it starts to make sense. That's kind of where I'm at right now. And it's really overwhelming in a good way. I'm starting to see all of the pieces fall into place like it was always supposed to be. And it's never been like that for me on such a powerful level. And it can sneak up on you. You might not realize it at first, but suddenly you look around and realize, oh, this is what was made for me. This is what all this was for. All the delays, all the confusion and the setbacks, all the times you thought you were lost. It was shaping you. And you realize something so powerful. You were never off track. You were just becoming. And for me, here's something that I didn't understand for a really long time because I was just sitting in this idea that every time I tried to find my purpose, I just kept getting pushed back. When I'm forcing life, I'm not really paying attention to it either. I'm just trying to make something happen so badly that I miss what's already happening around me. But when I started to slow down and kind of loosen the grip a little bit, things started to change in a positive way. Started to notice things that were too distracted to see beforehand. And I know that my life isn't perfect, but I know that I have a great support system around me. And sometimes when I'm trying to force other things in my life, things were getting a little blurry. But I started noticing opportunities that I almost ignored. I started noticing peace in moments that I used to rush through. I actually started to notice how certain people and paths and doors, they weren't even aligned with who I was supposed to be in the first place. Not everything that didn't work out was a loss. A lot of it was clarity and direction. Some of the doors that closed on me personally, I look back after the fact and said, you know what? I would have never lasted there because that's not what I feel like is the true version of me and trying to help people in the way that I want to help them. But at the time, I was hurt because I thought, I'm good enough to do this. But really, it was a blessing in disguise. It was a sign telling me that this is not where I'm supposed to be. And again, just like I was talking about, growth isn't usually something you notice while it's actually happening. You notice it after the fact. It could be right away, it could be months after the situation. You eventually see it, but it takes some time. Could be after you handled something you used to fall apart over, or you made a decision you used to be scared of. And that's when you realize something's important. You didn't just survive these moments, you changed them. You became someone stronger without even realizing it. And I think that's how purpose works too, right? It doesn't always show up as a spotlight. Sometimes it grows quietly inside until one day it becomes undeniable. That's what all this is happening for me. The Merck method was something I was scared to do, and I didn't know how to do it while doing what I wanted to do with, therapy and trying to help people through groups. And then one day, all the stars have aligned, and that's my true path. It's amazing. That's the paradise. Being able to do my purpose, it takes the stress out of it. It will take the stress out of you, but you have to stop forcing it because otherwise you're just pushing back and it's going to push you farther and farther back away from where you're supposed to be. When you stop pushing back on things, that's when things start to align for you, not because life got easier all of a sudden, but because you finally became ready for what was meant for you. Stop pushing. Stop forcing things that aren't there. I want to just sit with this for a second. Your path has never been random. Even the confusing parts or the painful parts, even the parts you wish you could erase. You can't take anything out of what has happened to you up until this point because all of those moments, good or bad, have shaped how you see the world. They shaped how you love, how you lead, how you show up, how you understand other people's pain. And that matters more than you think because your purpose isn't just about what you achieve, it's about what you carry that helps someone else keep going. And sometimes the very thing you thought was breaking you was actually building the exact part of you someone else really truly needs. There will be a point in your life if you keep going that everything starts to feel more aligned. Not necessarily perfect, but they start to feel different. You stop feeling like you're constantly behind. You stop feeling like you're fighting everything and feeling like you're out of place in your own life. And instead, you start feeling grounded. You start feeling clear, less stressed. You start feeling like even the unknown doesn't scare you the way it used to, because it can be scary not knowing where you're going or what your purpose is. But once you figure that out, that's alignment, not control, not perfection, but trust. Trusting yourself enough to keep going even when you don't have all the answers. You just have to believe in yourself and understand that you're enough, and the true version of you is the best version of you. And then all of a sudden, that one day just hits you. Everything you thought was working against you was actually working with you. Every delay had a lesson. Every loss you have had direction. Every no and closed door gave you that protection you needed. And every detour that you had purpose. And suddenly you stop asking, why does this happen to me? And you start asking, what is this teaching me? That shift right there, what was that? That's everything. That's where purpose starts to feel real. That's where life starts to open up for you. It'll be a glorious moment, I promise you that, because that's where you stop surviving and start becoming. I don't know about you, but I've waited a long time to understand where my purpose was and what I'm supposed to be doing with my life and making me feel like I'm actually making a difference. It's going to happen for you. You have to continuously believe in yourself and believe that those closed doors were a reason. Stop forcing them open because they won't be helpful to you at all, other than putting you in a better position moving forward. If that door closes, you weren't supposed to be there. And I want to close this thing out by just having some real talk, okay? No script. I just want to just preach the truth. Maybe you've been feeling like things aren't lined up. I get it. Maybe you've been wondering if you're behind. I get that too. You've been questioning your purpose, your timing, like what direction you're supposed to be going. But I want you to hear me very, very clearly. Just because it didn't work out doesn't mean you were wrong. It might mean you were being guided somewhere you couldn't see yet, and that's okay. I've lived it. I get it. It is happening. And I know that's hard when you're in the middle of it. When things feel uncertain, when you feel like you're waiting for something to finally click. But listen, you're not lost. You're not forgotten, and you're definitely not done. Because the real you, they never left. They've been under everything you've been carrying, under that pressure and fear and doubt, waiting for you to slow down long enough to hear them again. And maybe that's what today was. Not about finding something new, but remembering something true. So I just want to leave you with this. Keep listening to yourself. Keep trusting yourself. Keep going. Even when it doesn't make sense yet, because one day it will. And when it does, you're going to realize something so powerful. You weren't being blocked, you were being built. If you made it to this moment listening with me, then I already know this much is true. We found you. I want to thank each and every one of you for listening to the episode with me today and getting to this point. I hope it hits home. You're going to find your purpose. You're right there. Just keep going. And as I leave you always, I leave you with this. Stay grounded. Stay kind to yourself, and remember, strength begins with honesty. Until next time.